Hi there, thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be doing another eyeshadow brand bingo, and I'm choosing Colourpop again because I recently added 2 new Colourpop palettes to my collection, so I have even more shades to choose from now. I have 4 palettes now. I have the Going Coconuts, I have the It's My Pleasure, and then I have the Making Mauves and the Flutterby. These are the 2 new ones. And I also have 8 singles from Colourpop that I'll be including as well. And I think in order to keep it spread amongst all of them, I think I'm going to choose 1 from each palette. So I do have my pretty random app up, and I'm going to start from 1 to 9. And I'm going to start with my palettes that have 9 shades in them. So the first one is the Making Mauves palette. It looks like this. And the way I'm going to look at it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The first shade is going to be number 6, which is Mauve on Top. This is a beautiful color. I mean, you know, I could just wear this all over my lid and that be my whole look, which I have done several times, but look at the reflect on that. We are off to a fantastic start. Now for the It's My Pleasure palette, I'm going to do the numbering the same, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. The shade is going to be number 3. Oops, yeah, there we go. And that is Pretty Cruel, which is a matte. It does have some shimmery shades in it, but this will go beautifully with that first shade. If you can see, it's got kind of like a purpley mauve undertone. The next one is my Going Coconuts palette, and the shade I'm going to be pulling from this one is number 8, which is Da Coco. I think I pulled this in my last Colourpop eyeshadow bingo as well. Does that mean I should pull another one, you think? Yeah. Actually, that's what I'll do because I already used it in my most recent Colourpop eyeshadow bingo, so I'll pick another one from this palette. The shade is number 2, which is Palm Reader. Makes for a great inner corner highlight. And then for my Flutterby palette, this one has 12 shades, so I'm going to quickly change the maximum to 12. And the shade I'm pulling from that one is number 9, which is Lush right here. This is a tad too deep to be like a lid setting shade. It's a really nice transition shade. Now for the one that's probably going to throw us for a loop, it's all of my single shadows. I have 8, so I'm going to change the maximum to 8. And once again, I'll just have it going in rows. The shade I'm choosing from this palette is number 7, which is 143. Okay, so it's not mauve-y, but it's still purple. And this is going to be fantastic with the rest of my colors. How does this happen? How does the universe, the cosmos, they just all come together and make for one of the most cohesive color palettes I could create when I'm pulling from 5 separate palettes. So I'm going to pull you in a little bit closer, and that way you can see what I'm doing in more detail. I already have my eyeshadow primer on, and I did set my eyeshadow with this shredded shade from the Going Coconuts palette. And I do have the rest of my makeup on for the most part. Later on I'll add a highlighter and a lip color. So the first shade I'm going to go in with is this 4th shade here, that Lush shade from the Flutterby palette. This will make for a really nice transition shade. Those motorcycles, they are just out with a fury right now. I think because, you know, the winter months are coming, they won't be able to drive as much, so they're taking advantage of like the leftover warm weather, which I understand, but we live close to like a pretty major street, and usually people drive up and down that with their motorcycles, like revving their engines all the time, but they recently put speed bumps there, so they can't do it anymore. I mean, I guess they could, but they could probably mess up their motorcycles by doing that. So they do it on our streets instead. So I feel like I can hear them all the time now, which is like fine, you know, have your fun, do what you gotta do. But it's sometimes annoying whenever you're trying to film. I'm also using some new eyeshadow brushes from this BH Cosmetics set that I bought a little bit ago. It's like the neon green handles, and I haven't really used any of them yet, So we'll see. It's also a little bit of a first impressions with these brushes. Now I'm gonna go into that shade from the It's My Pleasure palette, Pretty Cruel. And I don't think I've ever actually used this, honestly. I'm gonna go in with the same brush. This is the number 10 brush. I don't think I've used that shade from this palette before, which is surprising given that it's kind of like a mauve shade, and I do really love those. I gravitate towards those. A little bit powdery, so I'm making sure to dust off any extra product before putting it on my eye. Having that lush shade down though from the Flutterby palette is making it really easy to blend. Not that I think it would have any problem blending to begin with. And I am going to pat just a little bit of that on the outer half of my lid as well. And I'll probably go in and put this on the lower lash line later. Now I'm going to go in with this flat brush, the number 7, and I'm going to grab that 143 shade, the single. It's that deep purple that's on the bottom here. I'm going to grab a little bit on the edge and kind of just stamp that on the outer third. If this brush will allow it, I might kind of wing it out a tiny bit. Now this brush is a little bit too big for that, which is understandable, it's fine. So I'm going to grab an angled brush. I think the shades from the Making Mauves palette especially, I think those work way better with a glitter glue. Just using the tiniest little bit and just quickly putting that on the inner third and then going in with my finger. Man, I love that shade. I think what I'm going to do actually is go in with that primer, put a little bit of that on my hand, and then put the 143 shade from my angled brush, that dark purple, and put that there and maybe try to use that as a liner. Maybe that'll work better. And then I can like go over it and set it with more just to kind of get the color impact that I want. Yeah, that's working really nicely. And then once again with that glitter primer, I'm going to put a little bit of that on the inner corner and then grab Palm Reader, that last shade, and put that on the inner corners. I am going to start by putting the Pretty Cruel shade from the It's My Pleasure palette on the lower lash line, but then I think I'm going to go over it a little bit more with that 143 shade just to make it look a little bit more purple. And I am going to go in a little bit with this darker plum shade here, Marquee, on the outer third, just to kind of like add a little bit of a deepened look there. Now I'm gonna put on eyeliner and the rest of my face, and I'll show you the final look. Okay, so for the rest of my face, I decided to go a little bit more purpley and cool toned on my cheeks. So for blush, I used the blush Camellia by Becca. I did have a little bit of like an orangey peachy blush underneath. I don't know if I covered it fully, but hopefully it's coming off more pinky purple than peach. And then for highlighter, I decided to use Charming Pink by Laura Geller. It's like got a very cool toned icy pink look, and I really like it with this eye makeup. I just put on mascara. I didn't add any eyeliner or anything. I kind of wanted the purples to show through, and that mauve on top shade, it's so pretty. And then for lips, I didn't want to go purpley pink, so I decided to go with something a little bit more like warm. So I went with Honey from Anastasia Beverly Hills. I think having a little bit of a contrast in undertones isn't too bad. I don't know. I just never really know what lip color to wear with purples. Let me know what's your go-to type of shade whenever you're wearing like warm purples on the eyes. At first I thought, wow, I can't believe I got such a cohesive color story, but then I looked back and realized, okay, 2 of the palettes are strictly mauve tones, and then the It's My Pleasure palette is mostly purples and pinks, and then the Going Coconuts is mostly browns and neutral shades. So really the only color that I wasn't really sure of what tone I was going to get was from my singles palette, and I ended up getting a purple from that too. So I guess I shouldn't have been as surprised by the color story given 4 out of the 5 palettes were very monotonous or monotone and have like very similar color stories. Either way, I still really like how the look turned out, and any excuse to put on a mauve purple eye I will gladly take. Let me know if you would have done anything differently with these colors or with any of the colors that I paired with it to finish the rest of my face. And let me know what type of eyeshadow bingo you would like to see next. Do you want to see all my singles again, a specific brand, all of my eyeshadows. But in the meantime, that's everything I have. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys!